creating data or specifically a user, right, you need to be able to identify them with what? With an ID. Because just like how I explained yesterday, the reason why we need identification number is because let's say a user comes to what? A user comes to our program, and then they enter their name to be, let's say, maybe Sefa Solomon, right? And then Sefa Solomon is a name everyone can, like, a lot of people can bear that name, right? So it's universally, I mean, the chances of you having the same name with someone is very high. So that is not what we can base on to be able to track a user and their activities. So you can't use the name to be able to track the user and their activities. That is when the UUID model comes in, right? And then I was explaining to that even if you go to ChatGPT, it's in their URL, they use it to is there. Basically, you can see it in the URL and they use it to be able to track different users. So it's used in most different programs to be able to track different users and their activities. So let's get to it. I mean, straight into code. So these are alphanumeric characters you are going to be using to track our users in our Airbnb clone. So this is how it works, right? This was yesterday's work. So let me create a different file and let me use it to explain. We will definitely come back to our code. So let's call this file UUID, right? Let me add one to it because in Python you can't name a file after a model, right? It throws an error. Let's try and let me show you something. So already we are having an error without writing anything. We are having an error because the UUID itself is what is a model in Python. So it is not how do I say, accepted, right? So let me append one to it and then let me use that. Great. So obviously you first have to import the model, right? And this is how you import the model. This is how you import the UUID model, right? And then you are great to go. Let me do this. Let me include the Shiba and then the user being Python. I know very for sure that most of us already know what that does up there, right? So see, in the importing of what? The UUID, you know that you can import a class from a model, right? Or maybe a function from a model, or you can import the whole model. So this is us importing the whole model itself, right? So let's get to it. There are we have the UUID1, right? So with this one is basically it is a method that generates what? An ID on the based on factors like the current timestamp and then the machine's hardware address. I'll show you the difference between, for today I'll show you the UUID4, right? And then the UUID1 and then the difference between them and then when to use them. But we'll be using this for our program. But I want to explain something to you, okay? So let's say we have something like my UUID, right? Is equal to UUID1, right? So the error we are having here, is because of the fact that whenever you import a model, okay, you need to whenever you're importing a method from a model, you need to make sure that you include the model's name, right? And then that solves the error. Okay, so now the difference is maybe we wanted to use the UUID1. We only wanted to use that and nothing else. So it is not wise for you to import everything. So with that one, you know that I should have explained this yesterday. You could have done something like this: from UUID import UUID1, right? That is when you can write it like this, and then you'll be able to use it. That is like you saying that I don't need everything in the model. Just give me the UUID1. I don't need almost everything in the model because this is the only thing I'm going to use, right? But then if you just import the whole model, because maybe you know that maybe you'll be using UUID1 and then UUID4 and 2 and then 5. So you'll be using all of them. So you could have just done from UUID model import UUID1, right? Like it's just along. So you just have to import the whole model. right? So that is the difference between importing the whole module and importing a specific method, class, or let's just say a function, right? Sorry about that. Okay, so now we have to do this, and then it gives us what? So let me print it for you to see what the ID entails. Let me print it for you. My okay, and let's see what that entails. When you run this program, we are trying to print the ID, right? And then as you can see, it generates what? A unique ID for us, right? And then that is how you get what? You get your ID1, right? But then in the Airbnb console, we are going to be using what? Let me name this variable your UUID, something like that, right? And let's import the UUID what 4, right? Let me import that one. And then you see the difference between the 4 and then the 1, okay? So let's print that, and then let's run our program again. And then UUID. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, now let's print that one. And then you see the difference between the first one and the second one, right? This first UID here, this first ID here, right, is the UUID1, and that is being generated based on what? The current time stamp and the machine's hardware address. So I will illustrate something here to you right now. And then this UUID4, right, it is based on random numbers, right? Is generated based on what? Just random numbers. Okay. And then what this one, the ID4, okay, is preferred the mostly because it has a wide range of possibilities, right? And then the probability of collision is extremely low. Like the probability of them two users having the same ID is very low, right? That is why we have. So when I go on to do something like this, and then I run it again, and I run it again, what you realize is okay, the ID1, okay, when I run the program at 3 different instances, the ID1 has something like, let's say, a similar format, right? It has something like a similar format, and then you barely see, I mean, a few changes in it, right? Let's start, when you are starting from reading it from right to left, you hardly see any significant change in it, unless when you come towards the last digits, right? But then when it comes towards the ID4, right, there is a significant change in all the 3 times what the program was run, and then the IDs are totally what different from what from each other, right? So if you want to, let's say, if you want to use it practically, which you will convert this into what a string. You convert the ID into a string, so that you can use it for your practical ways or whatever you want to use it for, which you are going to, right? Because you treat the ID as what? As a string. That way you can be able to use it, right? Practically. So this is when I run it again, nothing changes. It's just that in the program, this is being treated as what? As a string, or it's being converted as what? As a string, right? And then it means you can apply all the string methods to it any way you want it to be. So that is basically how what the the ID works. And what we are going to do is, okay, we are going to give every user, right, a unique ID in what? In our Airbnb console application, right? And then we are going to be using this ID to be able to track our users, I mean the comments they make, or something like that. When they make a comment, when they give a review, we will use what? Our ID to be able to keep track of them. So take note of that, and then always remember that what? If you import the whole model, then you have to what? You have to just pass the method to what? To the model itself. Or you have to call for it like this, right? But then if you import just the UID4, you can just basically do this, right? So um you can say from UUID import your ID what 4, right? And then that solves what? The error. Take note of that. Now that is just a brief explanation of what of our UUID, right? Now let's move on to the datetime model. First, let me copy and then just paste it, and then let me just say we have our datetime model. Okay. Any question with the UUID? Any question with it before we move on? Any question with the UID? Okay, great. Okay, why are you converting it into a string? Okay, okay. So the reason why you are converting, as I said, you are converting the ID into a string is okay. You are going to be using the ID, right? And because you are going to be using the ID, the what was generated there is not a string. So you cannot pass some methods to it like, how do I say? You cannot pass strings method you want to be doing. Let's say you want to how do I say, if you want to if you want to save it into a JSON file, for instance, okay, we need to, and then, oh no, let's say if you want to use it, if you want to make it I mean, let me just explain this to you. Okay, so let's say we did not convert it into a string. All right, we did not convert it into a string. Okay, and then we want to store this ID, right, as the user's ID, right? We want to store this as the user's ID, right? So let's say maybe in our program we wanted to append it, something like append the ID to the user's name, or let's say we want to place them in a dictionary as key and value pair. Okay, what we got there is not what we got there. Let me run the program again. Oh, let me import, let me delete this, right? What we got here, if I'm to ask you that, is this an integer or a string, right? You are not going to get an answer because it is basically mixed. We have C here, we have F here. But here's the case, we want to store it as what? As a dictionary. I mean, key and value pair. Let's say if you want to store it as a value in our dictionary, right? We need it to be a string before we what? We will store it so that we can perform string operations or string methods on it. Basically, that is the idea, right? So if you don't convert it into a string, it is going to be difficult for you to use it practically. Anything you want to do with it is not is going to be is going to prove very difficult. Like let's say we want to insert it, you want to append it, you want to split it, anything you want to do with it, you are not going to be able to do it unless some methods don't work on what? On like string methods don't work on the other slider. So this we are converting it to a string so that we can use it in our program practically. That is the idea for easy use and then for practical use. That is why we want to convert it into what? Into a string. I don't know if that makes sense for you. All right. So with the datetime model, please, any other question? Come again. I can't get you. I don't know. Can you be slow? Can you be a bit slow? Yes. Uh, Finding it difficult to get you. Yes, you are the one here. Oh, okay. So let me add, if I'm trying to understand you, so let me see, let me run the code. Okay. Um, Import UID. Okay. And then let me do this. Um, okay. Right. Now when we say when we run the program, did the UID one change? Okay, then please ask again. UID 4 changed. Oh, okay. So UID 1 actually changed, but then the change is not really significant. It's like it does not, if you monitor the first, how many characters are there, right? 8. The first 8 characters, okay. The first 8 characters actually changed. Yes. But then the rest didn't kind of change. Yes. But then the UID 4 kind of changed significant totally, right? That is why we need, that's why I was saying that the UID 4 is mostly preferred compared to, because the UID 1 actually based on the what? The numbers are generated based on things like time stamp, and then also um what how there's the systems model. Okay. So as long as you are running it at the same place, it continues to be in a way similar. Okay, I mean something like that, because we are running it at the same time, we are running it on the same PC model, and then like the machine is having the same hardware address. So all of these factors are still constant. So it makes it what? It makes the ID remain a bit the same, right? And then it like let's say the interval is what, 100 nanoseconds, right? What I'm trying to say is that, okay, if you're able to run the program within the interval of 100 nanoseconds, we are going to get the same ID with nothing else changing. But after every 100 nanosecond, something changes a bit about it. That is why it is not a bit that very much significant. So the longer time you spend in what, in running the program, then then we can say the number, then we can say the change, the the significance of the change, right? So that is the idea. That is why we stick towards the UID 4. That doesn't have to do with any factors. I mean, it's just randomized. It does not based on I mean the system's hardware address. It does not based on the timestamp. It does not based on anything. It's just random. That is why it is much more preferred than what, the UID one. Okay. Please, does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you very much. So let's move to the datetime model. Okay. So the reason why we will need the datetime model is, okay, we want to be able to keep track of things like whenever a user leaves a review, we want to be able to know that the user left a review at this particular time, right? Or let's say whenever someone creates an account, it should be there that the person created an account at this particular time, right? And then when they make an update to the time, their account, let's say the person realized that their name was not really I don't know, place name was, so they want to make a change to their name. You want to be able to know that at this time this person edited their name. So when you go to play web applications like um or let me use social media like Twitter, whenever you make a post, it keeps track of the time you made a post, the time, if you are on, I mean, Twitter Blue or S Blue, sorry about that, and then you make an edit to the post, it keeps track of that. That is why we need a datetime model, right? For um for keeping track of what changes. Basically, that is the idea. So when you go to a database, you're able to get the time this user with this particular ID changed their username, change their what, their birthday, anything like that. Yeah, basically, right? That is why you need the datetime model. So I'll touch on the datetime model is actually a lot, right? But I only touch on what is required of you in building what, the Airbnb clone. So let me get my um, Python 3, right? This is an exclamation mark. Sorry about that. So see, first of all, it's a model, so obviously you have to import it. So import datetime, right? Okay, so this, as I said, this is not ideal. We will not definitely be needing everything from the datetime model. So we only what? We only import the things we know that what we will be needing. So if you in the Airbnb console, you will be needing things like, I mean, import datetime itself, right? because the datetime has a lot of, how do I say, methods, or yes, methods that you might not be using. So we are importing datetime, date, and then what, time, from the what, from the datetime what model, right? So see, this is how it works. If you want to get the current time, okay, I mean, as we are here, you want to know the time, right? In your program, this is what you do. There, it has what? It has a method called what? The the datetime now, right? We have imported datetime. So we just pass that method to it. Okay. So let's say current time. This is just a variable we are declaring, right? Called current time. And then we pass what? The method to it. So if it is daytime, you want to say what? What is the time now? Right? Even as I'm doing this, what is the time now? Right? And then you pass that method to what? To your variable. And the daytime model, and then it just kind of, let's say, let's print current time, right? And then when, as you can see, when you run this program, it gives us what? The current time, right? In what? In a readable format, right? So you're able to see that, you're able to see the date, and then you're able to see the time, because it is what? The date time you imported, right? So you're able to see the date and then the time now, right? So this is the date and this is what? This is the time. Okay. So this right here is, how do I say, they are microseconds. Something like, yes, they are microseconds. So this is the microseconds attached to the time. So when we run it again, we obviously get a different time with different what, microseconds. So that is good. This is how to get current time now. Okay. So if you want to format your time in a specific way you want, maybe you want to be able to format your time, right, in a specific way, we have it is a method called what? The string format time, right? So let's say you want to, sorry about that, guys. Let me do this. Yes. You want to format the time that you have received, something like that. So we have a method called what? The string format time. Okay, right? String format time. Okay. And then you format your time the way you want. There is a standard, right, from time formatting that is mostly used, and then that is what you first want to have your year first, right? So you do this percentage y, you already know what that means. That is the placeholder for what? For the year. And then you do something like this, percentage m, right, for the time, and then you do percentage d, right, for the um for the day, right? So this is us trying to format what? The daytime, right? And then we want to, this is as we formatted the date. Now we can go on to what? To format the time to, in terms of hours, and then we can do something like this, and then we'll go on to say maybe, yes, obviously minutes, right? And then we do something like this, and we go on to say um seconds, right? So I mean, you just have to know what you want to say, what you are trying to say, which one comes first, which one comes next, and then you just apply that, right? So the H is for hours, M is for minutes, S is for seconds, Y is for year, M is for month, D is for day, and then you get your time formatted just the way as you have what you have said. So we can put this in a variable, or we can label this with a variable called what? Formatted time. Oh, sorry about that. Formatted time. And then since it's a method, we need to pass it. So we can pass it to what? This is our current time we have here, right? Is that even the right way to say passing? Either ways, let's see. Okay. So when you go on to run the program, you have your time formatted just the way you want. You ask that it's supposed to be formatted. The year comes first, the minute, and then the what? The day. Exactly the way you want. No, wait, what? We are not printing it. This is not the format I wanted to. comes. So it means you are not even printing. Sorry about that. I was reading the format from this current print. Let me comment it out. Okay, let me see. Sorry. Okay, let me comment that out and let me print the formatted time. Right. Think that solves the issue. Yes, and then you can see what the way we formatted it. If you want the year to come first, whichever you want the year to be, you can just do it that way. Right. That's it. And it's, as you can see, this one makes it for more human readable, and then we didn't involve any nanosecond here, so the nanosecond part was what was left out, and that is how what the time. I think this is the format you are going to be using, right? But then don't worry, it is on the page. Whichever format they want you to, you can just copy and then paste. They put it there for you to know that this is the format you want you to use. You just copy it, but just make sure that we should use the string format, formatting time, right? String format time method to format it. So basically, that is everything you need to know about the datetime model. Now, any questions? Any question before we move on? I'm trying fast to be fast so that we can maybe, I don't know, do a lot of things. Okay, so with the absence of no question, we move. Okay, I think someone wants to ask a question. Please ask. Or maybe if you dropped the question, someone can read it for us because I don't want to leave the screen and then. Hello, Diana, can you check on that for me? All right, great. Thank you very much. So let's move on. So this is how basically the date time model and then what the UUID model kind of works, right? Now, what was the next concept I said we'll be touching on? Um, okay, the args and then so arbitrary arguments and then keyword arguments. Arbitrary arguments. I haven't forgotten. I didn't get time to revise it. I'll come back to it, right? I'll come back to it. Let's move on to the file storage. Let's move on to the file storage. So I want to explain something to you, okay, before we even start anything on what the file storage. So as I said earlier, we are going to be using what file storage for our database, right? In building a web application, there are some things that you should know. One of them is called what? Persistency. Let me write them down. Let me write that one. I think it's on the concept page. Persistence, right? That means your web application should be what? It should be very persistent. When we say persistent, what do we mean? See, it refers to the ability of a web application to be able to retain data, right, between different executions. Now, see the program we wrote yesterday. Yesterday, we wrote this program that's what? Console, yes, that takes users info and then we'll be able to create a user. See, let's run this program and then let's see. Let's say we create a user one called John. Okay, right. And then let's read the from our database. We have a list of users to be John, right? Now when you close this program, okay, I need to implement this. Now when you close this program, okay, and then we come back to what the program again, and then we try to read. I mean, John is no longer what in the database, meaning that we've lost every data we had about what John, right? But then if your program needs to be persistent, your web application program needs to be persistent that even after you run the program or you execute the program again, you must be able to still get what John. I don't know if I'm making sense because imagine imagine the disaster, right? That comes with, I mean, launching a web application, and then luckily for you, you get about millions of users in maybe 3 days. I mean, it's possible, right? And then after getting those millions of users, you take their email, you take their logins, everything about them. And now, let's say something happens. Obviously, let me not just say something happens. So after the program, and then let's say you rerun the program again, and then you realize that you've lost all the millions of users. You cannot say, I mean, that is disastrous, right? You can imagine the terror that comes with it, right? So that is not persistency. Your application should be able to what? You should be able to retain the data even after different executions, right? That is when we run the program again. That is, it must start with all the objects that were created in the previous execution. It must still what? Have it intact. Okay, and then it ensures that the work done in the previous section is saved, allowing for continuity and the retrieval of every information you need. So when the user comes and then they want to know, I mean, something about their profile and the way is that blank, right? So that is not what we want. So that is what the persistency in what in every web application, and then we need to what to take note of that. And then what we are going to do, or what we are going to use for that is called so obviously we have types of storage. We have types of what of storage. Um right? I mean, most of us already know of what of the database. So the types of storage, I mean, we have file and what the database. Okay, so people still use files for storing data. Okay, I mean, it's not ideal for large amount of data, a lot that is accessed on then the regular base. Like, I mean, do I still have um my Canva? I don't have it. Let me try and open it, right? Let me see. Okay, so let's say we are dealing with something like, no, it's open here. Let me get it open here before I move on. I need a diagram I used to illustrate yesterday, section yesterday. If I get it. Okay, so we have our Canva here. Let me get the diagram. Okay. Oh, I think I did. I don't think I did that one here, guys. Bear with me. Let me guess. My diagram. I think I did it in this thing. Okay. So you have the database and then the file storage systems. So the database is, let's say we have a chunk of data we need to what we need to be able to save, or we need, yes, chunk data we need to be able to save. So let me get this. So if you can see from this diagram here, as I was explaining yesterday from yesterday's section, okay, we want to be able to this is the database, right? And then what the database is interacts with what the app 7 and the web 7, and it just kind of communicates. So let's say when the user wants to what where let's say a lot of users are sending requests, right? Maybe they want to access something from what from our database. Let's say we took information from them, right? The request was maybe a login page, and then we store their information in what you use the app server to store their information into what into the database, right? And then they want to have access to what that information in what in the database. So see something. Supposing we have a lot of requests coming all at once, like let's say, I mean, we have millions of users, right? The database should still be able to handle all, or our server should be able to handle all of these requests. Okay, but let's say we are having file storage for our database. It's not very ideal, right? Because we're dealing of the file. I mean, it's hardly difficult for it to be able to store. I've never seen it before. I mean, I heard recently that one country's their COVID details or something was stored using Excel and then in a file, right? But getting to a time, you see COVID kind of increased. They didn't expect that all the numbers to increase, so they just lost the whole records, or they just lost everything, right? So that is the essence of database, right? To be able to store a huge chunk of data, and it's easy for what? Easy accessing and then what to retrieve out. So whenever, even if there are dozens of what, let's say hundreds of clients requesting for what? For an info, it handles it what perfectly, right? And then that is not our worry for now. Our worry for now is what how to integrate what how to use the file storage system to get what to be able to what, store our data, right? So listen, the reason for the file storage or the purpose for it in this our Airbnb clone is okay is because see we want to be able to store, as I said, John in what in a file, in a JSON file, to be very specific. That way, whenever we run or execute the program again, we still have what John. When we read our users or our list of users, we still have what John in our what in our storage, right? In our storage class, something like that, right? That is why we are using what a JSON file. And then in your Airbnb, you must ensure modularity, right? What do I mean by modularity? See, let's say for now we are using JSON file, okay? So in our codes, we go on and then what we make use of what JSON file in our codes. Then now we are receiving a lot of requests, or let's say we want to what to migrate to what a database, right? Like a database like maestro or something. Can your code? Do you have to write your all your codes again, or you just have to just kind of change some 4 lines of code and then it still handles it perfect? It makes it easy for you to migrate from what one storage um one storage class to the other. I don't know if it's making sense. It should be modular. Let's say if we store the user with what something like a JSON file here, right? Your code should be modular in the sense that in the nearest future, if you want to make changes, and then let's say you want to store it with what with database like MySQL, it should be very simple for you to do that without having to what go through all your codes and then rewrite them again. It's not very what ideal. So that is what modularity means. Your web application should be very modular as of now, so that the designs allows for easy replacement of what the storage system without you having to recode the entire what application again. That is what we mean by what your code should be modular. So these are some of the things you should what take note of before what you before you start dealing with what um how do I say before you start dealing with the Airbnb, right? So also you need to take note of what I mean. I just explained the benefits of what of the separation, right? So in summary, right, the persistency ensures that data continuity across executions is what is possible, right? And then our file storage now recently is focused on what modularity, right? And then we will be using class attributes for what for easy description. I'll explain that. For now we are using just I mean we are using just a dictionary and then something like that. We are just appending to it. So let me do something here. Let me explain how the JSON file works, and then after that we go back to our codes and then make the changes we are supposed to. So right, this is JSON. I mean you've already learned JSON. Wait, please, before I move on to the JSON, any questions? Any questions before I move on to the JSON? Are there any questions before I move on to the JSON? Okay, so with that sense of no question, let me just get straight. So see, what is a JSON file? Okay, JavaScript. JavaScript is the O object object notation, I think, right? So what happens is that okay, let's say we are writing a program in. I'm telling you the use of what the use of the JSON. Let's say we are writing a program in what in Python, right? And then we have just as we are doing, and then we have a dictionary just as we have, and then we want to be able to save it in a file. Do you think it's ideal that we just dump everything in the file just like that? I mean, we can just go on and then we just create, I don't know, a file, right? A file, let me say, let me call it storage, right? And then we just go on to what? To dump the data, just one, then John, then two, then Mary. I mean, even without any indentation, right? That is not ideal, right? That is why we have JSON files. It makes it possible for us to what? To dump our data, right, in a more structured way, in a more readable format. I mean, this doesn't make sense. 1 John 2 Mary. This not doesn't make sense. And then also, it is not what? It is not being saved as a dictionary as we wanted. Because we wanted it to have something like this, and they wanted it to be what? And something like this, right? I mean, you can wonder if you have hundred of users, if you have to just dump everything, then you now come back to the storage file, you now try to what? To indent it and then format it. That is not really ideal, right? That is the basically what the ideology of why JSON file is important, right? Because it provides a more structured way for us to what? For us to be able to store data and then at the end of the day have access to it. And then it's also what? It's also universal in the sense that, let's say as we are writing the program in a Python, right? And then we want to be able to store the user's input. We just have to what? We just have to use the JSON file to store it. And then let's say later someone needs access to it, but the person is writing the code with JavaScript. It makes it easy for the person to what? To be able to get access to the data and then import it the same way as it was without having any difficulties. Because the way you store a dictionary in, I mean, languages like C and then Python, I mean, every language has its way of storing a dictionary. But JSON file makes it what? Possible for you to what? Do this without having to think about, well, I'm importing this data from a Python script. Do I have to worry about the dictionary? I mean, something like that. That is the idea. That is JSON file for you. It's very universal. I mean, anyone can just come into a JSON file and be able to read the data inside, being a programmer or not. Front end takes data from the user. The front end can just store everything in what? In the JSON file, the front end developer, and then the back end developer is still able to have access to what? To the data, right? Just exactly as what it was taken without having to worry about, I mean, things like, I mean, format and everything. So let me just go to it, okay? So Python has a model called what? The JSON model. That makes it easy for you to what? For you to work with what? The JSON files, and that is what you are going to be using now. So um let's create a file, okay, and then let's call that file. Okay, I think I've not explained that. Okay, so let's call that file serialization, because I said we will be talking about what? Serialization and then what? Deserialization. Then I'll explain what that means to you. Yes, we need to have a simple flow that serializes and then deserializes, right? An instance into a dictionary and then into a JSON string and then into the file. So the process of you what? Converting your dictionary into what? A JSON string, right? Is what we call the serialization, right? Let's say you take the data from what? You convert it into what? A JSON string. It is called what? It is called serialization. So let's say, supposing we have what? We have a dictionary. Let me just go on and do that. Let's create a dictionary and then let me use it to explain. All right. So we have this. I mean, everyone knows what a dictionary is, right? A key per value, right? Right? Is that a dictionary? Yes, I think. Okay, so let's import JSON. That means it has a key with its value, right? A key value pair. Yes, sorry. So we import JSON. This is the model, the JSON model we are going to be using to do with what? Our JSON. It basically gives you methods and then, yes, methods you can use to make it easier for you to just dump your data in what? The JSON file, right? And then let's say we have a dictionary called maybe the user's data, right? And then let's say this dictionary, okay, we have the name. We've stored it in such a way that the name is what? Is the key, and then we pass a value to it. I mean, John has suffered in our hands, and then Mary to Merido, right? So we also have maybe the user's age, right? Something like their age, right? Also in a dictionary, and then the age is the key, and then we have what? The value to be 21. I mean, let me make it an integer to illustrate something to you, right? So we have this to be what? The user's age, right? And then we have, I don't know, maybe we can also have a list in it, right? I mean, maybe the courses John does in school, we want to have it in the form of what? A list, right? So we have something mass, and then I mean we can have other courses like, I mean, maybe English or history Sorry about that. And then since we are we are programmers here, it's very fair we can just say that what we have another what course called what computer science. Please pay attention and then critical details to what I'm doing. So what I've done is what I've created a dictionary. Yes, you can create a dictionary with the list being values and then what sometimes tuples or any way you want it to be, right? So see, we have a dictionary, okay? This dictionary is basically what a user called or John with their age and then the courses they offer. Okay. So let's say we want to what? We want to have this dictionary, right? This is a dictionary representation of our data. And we want to save it in what? In a file, in a JSON format. That means after we save it in a file, you want it to still maintain its what? It should still treat this as what? As an integer. It should still treat this what? As a string. It still treat the whole thing as what? As a dictionary. So that whenever everyone comes to it, they will know that what? This is what? A dictionary. This is what? This is a boolean. This is the boolean type. This is a string. This is what? An integer. Whilst you are still keeping it in what? In a file. That is when JSON comes to play. So let me comment that and let me illustrate how we are going to use for JSON to achieve that. So we have something like this, and then we have um oh wow. Sorry about that, guys. Ignore that, right? So let's say we want to serialize what? We want to serialize this data. That's we want to convert it into what? A JSON string. Serialize the data. Oh, okay. Let me fix that. Right. So we want to serialize this data. Okay. Don't worry, I'll integrate it in our program for you to, get the idea of what we are dealing with. Okay. And let's say, let me comment this. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Let me comment this and let me say you want to what? We want to convert to what? To JSON formatted string. That is basically what? Serialization. So this is what we are going to do. Okay, let's create a variable that will use it to label what? Our data. So let's just say JSON string, right? This is it, JSON string. This is where we are going to store the dictionary inside as what? As a JSON string. So we've declared a variable called JSON string. And now see, the method we are going to be using is what? It's called JSON dump. Okay, that is what we are going to use to dump the data, right? Into what? Into our JSON string. Basically, we are using it to convert our string into what? Into a JSON string, our dictionary, sorry. And the next thing we do is that, okay, we pass our data, this data, okay, to what? To this function we are having here or method we are having here. And then that is all, right? So when you print this JSON string, when you print this JSON string, let's run this program and then let's see, right? Okay, what am I doing wrong? Missing one required argument. Oh, okay, yeah, it's dumps. Thank you very much. Since the string, wow, thank you very much. I think the dump is something else. I will talk about that one too. So thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So dump is when it's a file and then dumps is when it's a string, right? Thank you very much for that. So let's run our program again. And then as you can see, we have what? We have our dictionary perfectly represented here, what? As name, John, age, and then as you can see, it did not treat 21 as what? As a string, but as decimal, as an integer, just as we wanted. And then it goes on and what have you, right? So what we want to do is, okay, this is not ideal, all right? See, after we just quit the program. We've lost the data. And the ideal is what we want to save it in what? In a file. That is the ideal. That is why we are even doing this in the first place, right? So that means even after, okay, even after serializing it into what? A string, you want to what? Save it into a file. I don't know if you guys are getting me, but before that, is anyone having any question with this? Is anyone having any question with this? Okay, no question. So see, this is how we are going to implement save to a file, right? So we don't want it to be hanging here like this. We want to keep it in a file that whenever you want it, you can open the file and then see its content, right? So this is what you are going to do. In order for us to work with that, I mean, it also has what? First, let's just first open a file using the width, right? So with open, I mean, you can use any way you want to open a file, but this ensures that what, when you use this with open as, it makes it easy for us to just kind of, it cleans up everything. We open, we close, use, we don't have to worry about open, close, something like that, right? So it makes it what, easier for us to just optimize and deal with our file in a more optimized way, right? So let's say we want to open a file. I mean, this file does not exist yet, but let's create one called what, data.json. Your JSON file must have the JSON extension, right? So when we do this data.json and then want to open it in what, in write mode, since we want to write something inside, right? We want to write something inside, and then we do so open as, so we are opening this data.json file as what, we can open it as a file, but let's just name it JSON file, right? This is the name we are giving to our file, JSON file. Wait, how do we spell JSON? Okay, right. So now this is what we are going to do. We are going to write this data, right, into our file, right? Or let me just say, yes, this string that we have here, this JSON string, we are going to put it in a file. That is the idea. After we've converted this into a JSON string, we want to put this string what, in a file called data.json. That is what I'm doing now. I'll explain something to you along the way, but just try to understand this, okay? JSON file, and then we want to write, what are you writing? The JSON string, right? Okay. Okay, in what? In our file. Let's see. Let me try and go through the course again. So we have this as our dictionary, and then we serialize it here, and then we save it in a file called data.json. All right. Now let's run our program again, and let's see what happens. Okay. So we are printing. We don't want to print anything. Let's just ignore this. This is showing because we wanted to print it, but we don't want to print it. We just want to store it in a file. So let me run the program again, and then let's go into what, let's list our files, and then let's see something if the file was created. And then as you can see here, we have what, data.json here, and then we go into the file and then we see the contents, right? And then you can see that what, it has stored our data as what, as dictionary, just as we wanted, right? I mean, if you're using VS Code, you can just format this, you can format document, and then you still have what, access to what, it still shows you just the way that you created data in the form of what, a dictionary. So that is what we want to basically do with what, our Airbnb Clone. So we want to be able to store this what, data like this, okay? And then let's say after storing the data like this, right, in a JSON file, and then we want to use our data, okay? That is, wait, any questions? Any questions with the serialization? Any questions before you move on? Yes, please. You can use that too. Um, yes, it's the same thing. I think I'll use that to explain on the next. We will be reloading and then redamping. So I'll use that to explain. We'll be reloading and then dumping into a file. So I'll use that method. I mean, definitely along the way. Anything else? But okay, I'll show you how that, when it comes to dump, it works differently from this, right? I explained that. So with absence of no questions, let's move on. We just explain what serialization, right? That is, we serialize, we convert the data from what, from a dictionary to what, to a JSON string, and then we save it in what, in a file, right? So now let's move on to what? Let's move on to, is that a question? Let's move on to deserialization, okay? And then see, okay, the person can go on and ask the question. Okay, okay. So what I did was, okay. So when you store the JSON file, it's basically in a format like this. Okay, let me just do it. Let me let me do this. Let's run the program again, and then okay. When you run the program, this is how JSON saves it, right? Right. So when you want it structured, I mean, it's dependent on you want to structure it, right? So there is in VS Code. If you're using VS Code, you can just use the format document here. So that is what I did to format it. Okay. If you are not, if you are, let's say if you are a hard programmer that you don't go with um text editors like VS Code, you go with V, and then yes, the senior programmers, you can just copy all the content of the files, and then you go to a website, a JSON formatter website, and then you just paste it there, and then they'll format it for you. You copy it and you come back and paste it, right? I mean, with the formatting, it makes it easier to read, right? So you can just go to a website, JSON formatter or any website, just search for it, right? And then you copy this contents, right? You copy everything, you select everything and copy it, and then go and paste it. They'll format it for you. You go and copy it back and then. But I don't really like the idea of website because I don't know who is having access to my data, right? But either ways, I mean, no matter what you do, people still have access to your data. So okay, so does that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. Okay. So with absence of no other question, let's move on to the how we are going to deserialize the user's what data, and then we store it in what in our JSON file. So let me go and just grab this so I don't have to go through writing everything. But again, so forgive me to do this. Let me just kind of come here and then let me paste it. Use deserialize. Okay, so let me explain that. So see, we want to load the data back into a program or another program, or let's say after a front end developer did this. I mean, maybe he didn't use Python, and he used maybe JS or anything, whatever the front end developer used to save them to save the data in a file in a JSON format. We want to be able to load it into our program. Let's say the person used JS and then we are loading into our program with Python. How would you do that? That is what is called what deserialization, right? Sorry about that. How would you do that? So let's go on with that. So first of all, you have to what? You have to load the file. Load from the file. I mean, you know the file you're working with, right? You know the file that the front-end developer gave you, right? So you want to load from it. So let's use the with open as again. With open as. Okay. So now what is the file name you're working with? Is data.json, right? And then we want to open it in what? In read mode. Guys, remember me about the mode. I would have to explain something about it. I mean, one makes sure that your data is intact, the other doesn't. I'll just remind me about that later. So we have how do I say? Um yes, we are opening it in what? In read mode, right? Since we are reading from that file, right? As JSON file, we are using the same name again, JSON file. Not necessarily, but you can use anything, right? And then we have our data in the JSON file now, right? Right, we have our data in the JSON file now. We know that we have our data, right? Then we are reading it. Okay, now think I've yes, it's an underscore. Now, after you read it, you want to place it in a variable called what? JSON string. Oh, I feel like I'm doing something wrong here. I mean, I'll figure it out. Don't worry. So this is what this is us opening the data JSON file in read mode, and then we what? We just kind of convert everything back into what? A JSON string again. I mean, if you get the drill, that is what we have just deserialized it, right? And now let's put it in what? In our data variable again. And then what are we putting it inside? let me comment here. Pay attention to something here. Let me add a comment so you pay attention. See, we want to convert what? We want to convert the JSON formatted string to what? To our dictionary. That's what we want to do, right? We want to convert it back to a dictionary. In our file, we have it what? As I wouldn't say, JSON itself is yes, it's a dictionary, right? But JSON itself it has a language in which the files are written. You can create a JSON file by just coding, right? So let me just say you convert the JSON formatted string back to what? To a dictionary, right? Now, how are you going to do that? Data, and then what? What are you working with? JSON, right? And now the method you use here is what? Loads. Just remember that what you are loading a string, right? Just use that in your head. You want to load a string from what? From the JSON file, right? So what you do is you pass the JSON string you have here, right? After you read it, right? So you have your data here now. When you do this, it basically converts it back to a data. Hopefully, let's see. Convert the JSON formatted string to what? To a dictionary. Okay. Now let's try accessing what? Let's try using it as what? As a Python dictionary. Use the data as a Python dictionary. So we now have access to the data that was given to us, right, by the front-end developer. And they want to what? We want to see, right, the user's name. Maybe you wanted to get it and then try and print or do something to the user's name, right? Wanted to maybe make a change or something. Can be anything, right? So what we can do is, okay, we can access the data using what? The key, right? And then the key is what? The key is name. All right, I think this works. So we are trying to access the user's name. We can access the user's age too. Anything you want to access. You now have access to it. So you can access anything you want. You can even access their age. And then what? You can also have access to what? To their courses, right? Remember, we are using the key to what? Access the values, right? Don't forget that. So in our program, we are just going to use our ID to access what? The value in what? In the program we wrote. So let's run this programming. Let's see. Okay, so we have an error with courses. So there is no key called courses. And then I think that may be true, right? True. It is not called courses. It's called what? Course. So let's change that. And then let's run our program again. All right, so as you can see, we have what? We have our name, and then we have what? Our age, and then we have what? We have our courses, right? Represented just as we wanted to print it out, right? So that is idea. That is the idea. Okay, that is the idea. Now see something. When we run this program again, okay, what I was asking that you guys should mind. When we run this program again, right? When you run this program again, what you can see is that, okay, in our file, right, we have what? We have John, age 21, maths, and the history. Now, let's say in our program, another user comes in and let's say my name is not John, my name is Mary, right? And then I'm not 21. Let's say maybe I'm 22, right? And then we run this, right? And then we go to our JSON file, right? Let me format it. See what happens. Now it has updated it to Mary and then the age 22, right? But maybe that is not what we want to achieve. We want to be able to what? We don't want to update everything again, right? I don't know. We don't want to update it. We just want to, it should give a different space for a new user, something like that, right? So that whenever every user comes in, they give their details. It's not like it now has to overwrite everything. It just kind of goes on and it appends, and it appends, and it appends, right? So I think with that one, we are not going to write into it, right? Because this mode here, this mode just kind of writes to it, right? So I think you know the mode that we can use, right? So who can help us with that mode? I think, have you forgotten? Either that is one word or something. We want to append the data into what our JSON file without what overwriting the memory in case there is another user or something. So I think that is what the A for append, right? I mean, I don't know. A for append, right? Now let's change the details again, and then let's run this to be what? To be John, right? So I have a different user called John, who is of age 21, right? And then maybe he does science instead of what? Instead of history, right? And then we run this program again, and then we come to our JSON file. Oh, why do you have an error in our JSON file? Well, let's see. Okay, okay. So with our appending, the way it's appended it, let me see, guys. A moment. Let me just do this, and now let me run the program again. I think maybe it's because I had formatted it. Yeah, well, that is not the reason. So with appending, it has not indent, right? I think there is. Let me format this. I mean, you don't want this. I mean, you want something like this, right? You don't want it just kind of just appending to it like this. I mean, it should end this. It should end this like this. Think, is that how to end a JSON? Guys, how do we end JSON? Is it a semicolon or something? I've forgotten. Someone should help us. Is it this? Guys, it's not easy. So we don't, but the idea is we don't want it to be what? We don't want it to be something like this, right? We just want it to be on what? On a different line. We want it to be stored separately. Anyone wants to help us? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, okay. So basically, when we do it that way, that takes care of the indentation. Oh, okay. Some something like this. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Wow. Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, okay. So what if we have thousands of users? They are all going to be there. Yeah, yes, yes. You're actually right, right? And then also there is a way that I when did I write JSON codes? I think that was like I've forgotten, but it's long. That's why I've forgotten. But you're actually right. But also there is a way that you're able to just kind of have all of them in a different dictionary and then it's saved separately with their own. Yes, and I get you, but just that I get you with the fact that you are saying with it, that it just separates them with what their names, right? So yes, so I think I would have to look into that. I would have to go back into one of my codes and then we will look into that. So thank you very much. Let me see. I mean, anyone else? I mean, let me ask any questions or any contributions. Let me try and find my JSON file here. I mean, from here, we are going to integrate it into the code we wrote the last time. So if you have any questions, just ask. Guys, really, are you saying we should go on without any questions? Okay, okay, great. So let's move on, right? Let me get this. I think I did something here that I've lost. I want to get this thing for you. Um, because I've forgotten how it works. I want to get it. I did it somewhere here. And then we have this. You have lessons, exercises, and then oh, I didn't upload it. Okay. All right. So I think right. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay. Don't think I'll even find it. All right. Let's move on. So we've talked about what? We've talked about the crude, the CMD model, the UID model, the daytime, the JSON, and then the axe, and then the what? The key words. We've not what? We've not talked about it. And I was saying I'll touch on it. Okay. So I was explaining variadic functions yesterday. Okay. Where was it? I was explaining variadic functions yesterday. Okay. Please ask. Yeah. Yeah, that is right. Because yes, I remember seeing something like that. But I think with that one, you have to indent it. You have to show, you have to tell it how you want it to indent it. I've just forgotten it, right? I want someone to find out for us if they can, right? Instead of just dumping it inside, okay, you can indent it. You can leave four spaces. I mean, leave four spaces before you dump another thing, or leave two spaces before you dump another thing, right? So yes, so that is true. I'll try and update it in a group when I find it. There is a way you can do that, but I don't even think that is not even what you are going to do in the how do I say? Oh, guys, let's move on. Let me do something. See, when we are dumping, can we add another argument and say indent it to be what? Indent it to be 4. Let's try this. Hopefully this indents it and then it gives us what? Data. Let's get rid of this. Right. So serialization. And then let's just dump it inside. Oh, it didn't work. So why didn't they give us an error that that's me? I mean the fact that they didn't give us an error means it is okay. Let me just write it instead of appending. Okay, and then let me just write it again. Maybe that is why. Let me I remember something like that. Yeah, I remember something like that. This overrides. Okay, this is the code. Yes, we are trying to append the data. I mean, when the user changes their name, like something to Mary, we want to be able to, like when we run the code like this, we want to be able to keep what Mary, I mean, on a separate line, something like this. I don't know, but I've seen it somewhere before. Can we change the one? Oh, okay. Yes, yes, I get you. I get you. And that means we want to write and then, I mean, if like write and append, right? Is that it? Hello, is this write and append? I've forgotten what it is. Okay, okay. So, okay, okay, great. All right. So let me just run it again. I think that one too works, but I think I know. Um, so why is this one not working? That is my question. Now, why is the indentation not working with it? Oh, we have an okay. No, that is something that we can ignore, right? So let's go back into it again. It doesn't really work. So I'll find a solution for you guys. I mean, you will not even use it, right? Oh, right, 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 right. Please continue for me. And then we, yes, and the comment out line 14. Yes, okay, but okay, so thank you very much. But I want to chip something in. I think if this one works, okay, sure, sure. Let's just write an append is works like basically like the appendo. But this just gave me an idea. But let's try this and see. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much. Let's see. Yes, we need to add another required position, and I wanted us to use the what? The indent, right? Wanted us to use the indent here for the additional because when you use dump, you need to add a position argument, another one to what? To the first one you just did. So that was what I wanted us to try and see. Okay, still having an issue with that. File. So let's say we are dumping the data from our JSON file. Okay, let's see this. All right, now let's try this. Okay, let's run this program again. Okay, so that solves the issue. So the other one would be, I think it works like the data you are having and then the file you are dumping it inside, and then you can add an indentation to it, and then that works. So let's try and make changes, and let's see if that solves the issue. Thank you very much for the contribution, guys. Oh yes, I wanted to make changes and let's see if it works. That's what I'm doing. I'm in the process of doing. All right. Oh, okay. Which one? Oh yes, yes. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of mistakes we are making because even with this one, even with this one, it still didn't work. It still didn't work in it. When we make which one? That is read and write. Okay, so which one is the appending? And is there anything like WA? Let me see. No, there is no certain. I remember like, oh, it's not easy. I really need to go back to Python. But either ways, let's try the appending, right? If it works clear, it's supposed to work like that. I'll find the issue with it and then we'll come back to. Okay, so it doesn't solve the issue. It still does the same thing and then let me see. Something has changed here. Something has changed here, but still it's not indented. It just creates them. It creates the users, but it still gives us what? An indentation error. So wow, that was a very beautiful section. And then I would want us to continue because of time. Let's be fast. What's the time now? I can't see my time. Okay, 5:32. Meaning that I mean about 30 minutes time we should be done. So let's be fast about it. So thank you guys for the contribution. Honestly, I'm very happy about today. We've learned a lot, right? So um I'll find that format I was talking about and then but if you ask me to like if you ask me that Kobe, I want you to write it like out. Definitely something like I should write it out. I can actually write it, right? Without having to indent it personally. I can write it just like that, right? I can do something like this. I mean to get rid of the errors here, but that one is not ideal. I mean your program should take care of that, right? I can do something like this and I can do something like this, okay? And then when I come here, I'll do something like this. This is just me trying to hard coding in JSON. When I come here, I do something like this. And then when I come here, I do something like this. No, you go here and then you come here, right? And then when I come here, I'll do something like this. Let's say data, right? Is data, right? So I remember it's been long since I wrote in a JSON, but either ways, and then when I'm done, I'll just enclose everything, all of this, right? All of this in my is this control? Okay, no, that was not you. Let's get back to it. Okay, and this, right? So after that, I just have to separate here with comma, and I have to separate here with what? With comma. I mean, that is me trying to write with the JSON language, and that gets rid of what? The error. But I mean, that is not ideal. You will not go into your course or your database and then you just be writing in JSON script, right? Or the JSON language. Your program should handle that what gracefully. So this is just me trying to hard code it, and then this was what the error we are having. But well, either ways, I'll try and find the code, and then I think I would have to start taking my Python serious these days. Thank you guys for a wonderful section. Let's try and make changes to us. So that is basically how we are using what JSON to store data. So see something. Whenever a user comes and then they make changes, I mean anything they make changes, I mean this will meddle, this will disrupt my code, and then they make changes. It just kind of what stores the user's what info in the JSON file, and then as you can see it appends it there. So that is what we want to do. So let's go back to what with absence with is anyone having any question, because we are about to end the meeting. We are just moving on to the program we wrote yesterday, and we make the changes we have talked about in the course. So any questions? Anyone having any questions? Okay, that means we can move on. Guys, all right, sure. So where is our program, our other program? This is the program we wrote yesterday, right? I mean, don't be confused. It's not something new. This is the program we wrote yesterday. So we want to be able to what? Integrate everything we've done so far. We should use JSON to store the user's data. We should be able to use the ID to keep track of. I mean, you get a drill. So the first thing I want us to do is the most important, so that even if time doesn't permit us, you get to know the idea, right? Is that we can use what? Let's store it in a file. So see, before that, let's run our program, okay? When we run this our program, and then we create a user called John, and then like one John, right? That is how we set the format to be. And then we create two to be or something like that. And then when we read, okay. Sorry about that, guys. When you read, we get what our users. Now let's end this program. Okay. And now let's come back to our program again. And then when we read, as you can see, we lost all our data. So let's put in what file 3 system that is going to store our data. And then we are going to use JSON for that in our Airbnb, right? So let's import JSON. This is what you are going to do. We are going to write a method that saves the data to what? To our file for us. Please, this save here we are doing, you do it in a base model. You implement it in a base model, but because we are learning, hopefully God should give us time. I think that will be the last session for tomorrow. I will take you through the base model and how it's structured, and we bring our section to an end. So we'll move all these implementations to the base model. So let's call this save to file. Okay, this is a method. I think someone needs to mute themselves. Please take a microphone and unmute yourself as right. So we are writing a method that will automatically save the data in what? Into the file for us. Right. So let's comment this to what? Save data to file. Okay, and now this is how we are going to implement it. What's to work in such a way that okay, um let's create a file, or we can create it here. So with open, just as we did in the other one, we will create a file here, and then we'll call it what? User, is it, can we make it user data? Yes, user data dot JSON. All right, so let's put it in our what? In our string. This is us trying to store the user data, and then we open it in write mode. Since the most are even here, we could have gone through them. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so we open it in write, and then as we need to have a file name for that, right? Guys, a moment. This keeps worrying me. So let's say let's find a file name. Let's use our JSON file name, right? Like how we did in the other program. Okay. Now see, the logic of the code should be that, okay, now even as we've opened this file, we are going to dump what? We are going to dump the data inside. And that's when we use what? The dump method, right? We are going to dump the data inside. Okay. So we do something like this. Wait, have you opened the file? Yes, that's right. Sure, now we can dump it inside. That is whatever that we have. Sorry guys. Whatever that we have in our dictionary, right? Whatever that we have in our dictionary, remember that what is the dictionary we are working with. So self users, right? This is the dictionary of we are dealing with, right? Okay, we open it in write mode, and then what do? We dump the the users into what? Into our file, and the name of our file is what? JSON file, right? So I think this logic should work for now. For now till it messes up. So see, this is a basic method that is going to store what? See, what we've done is we've opened a file called userdata.json in write mode, and then we are dumping what? Our dictionary what? Inside. Okay, but if you run this code, it's not going to work, and then I'll explain why. I'm coming. Let me show you something. Let's run this code, right? Okay, why? Oh, self user self is not defined. Oh, guys, why? We have defined it here, but at the time you open, you say the file, it is not defined. Okay, okay, um, okay, okay, um, yes, I get that you're just asking. Yeah, I get what you're asking, but I don't think that solves the issue. I'm just trying to see what it is. Sorry. I was lost in thoughts, thinking. I heard what you asked, that should it be a private class? I get you. I'm just thinking about the codes. Okay. Okay, so I was saying, come again. Oh, okay. Okay, yes, yeah, I understand you. You said we should do something like this, right? Yes, I get you, right? But the reason why we will not do it like this is because we are not going to be using this method in the command line. This is just a method. I mean, we are not going to be doing this. Oh, let me just comment this out and let me explain why we cannot use the do. I always forget. Okay, right. We are not going to be doing this. Cha, clear. Oh, but I just commented this out and then we are still having this error. Okay, line what? Line one in model self users. Didn't we add a constructor? We did. Wow, guys, what do you think? I mean, I have not changed the codes though. I have not done anything to our codes. Let me do this, all right? Let me do this. Let's go back. Let's get rid of everything, basically. And then let's go back to what our codes yesterday. Oh, I think no, that is not the reason. I got rid of that. Let's see. Line one. Line one. In the temp. Let me even delete that file. Remove temp. Let me clear. Alright. Let me run this program again. So, guys, can you believe it? It's not easy. Alright, so I think it was a temporary file. I don't even know what it was, but it just gave me the maybe the idea that I should just remove it. I don't know what made me want to remove it, but seeing it there just made me feel like it is the cause of the error, and indeed it was. All right, so I mean we are working magic, right? We are working wonders here. Okay, cool. So let's have our method back. When you run a Python script, okay, I mean I don't know, I've not gotten time to understand what the temp file does, but it just kind of creates itself. I think mostly when you, well, I don't know whether anyone has an idea. Yes, yes. So that it saves your last progress. That way it doesn't have to run everything again. Okay. All right. So it's like a temporary place. Wow, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that insight. Okay. So see, let's create um this doesn't work, guys. Do you know something? We've created a method that is going to save what our data, but we are not calling for the method. That is what I was saying that is not going to work because see, when we create, we must call our method. When we update, we must call our method. And then when we destroy, we must call our method. Why? Because whenever we create, okay, whenever you create the user, whenever you create a user, we want to save the details we passed to it into the JSON file. So see, let's do control here. We are on what? We are the control phase on. I mean, I can't say control phase in Python, but either way, control is on what? Line 14, okay. And then when it comes to what? After we have taken what? See, the easiest what? Input with what? Line. And now we split it into what? Args. And then we put the first what? The first string to digit and then the second one to name. Follow very well. So right now we're having what? Digit and then what? Name. And then it's what? Let's say one and John. And then we store it in what? In a dictionary. Now, after storing it in a dictionary, we need to save it in what? In a file. That is when we will call for this our method here. Now, as even as you've taken the data, okay, now we want to what, pass the method to it. That way it's what, it comes here and then it says that what, okay, so the users, right, that I have now in my what, in my dictionary, let me save it in this file called JSON file that has been what, opened. I don't know if you get the drill, something like that. That is what we want to do. That is why we need to what, be able to call for what, our method right under what, right under the crate, and also definitely at the update. That way you can update the JSON file, and also under the destroy, but not read, because when you are reading the users, we are not manipulating the data, so we don't need to even have access to the data, or we don't need to store it when we are reading it. So we don't need to call it there. So I don't know if you guys um get what I'm trying to say, but that is what we are about to do. So this method that we have written, okay, this method we have written, we need to write another one that is going to reload it, but we'll do that one later. Let's think about the save now. Okay, so we'll call this method in the all the places we want it to work. So let's call it here. I mean, after everything is done here, right, save whatever you got here for us. So we call for the method, and then you don't need to pass the solve to it, right? You'll be doing a similar thing. Please take note. So when we do save to file, we have an error, and I'll explain to you why. But let's go on. Or if someone knows why you're having the error, you can tell us why. And then we pass. Great, great. Yes, it needs to be part of what? How do I say? I mean, the way we've done it, okay. There are two ways we can solve this issue, right? There are two ways we can solve this issue. We can access it using the self, right? Because it doesn't know this method doesn't know where this method is coming from, because this method got defined somewhere along the line, right? And then what we can do to solve that is, okay, we can access it using the solve. That means what, we are trying to access this method in what, in this class itself, something like that. We are trying to access this method in the class itself, right? So it's basically the same thing our brother said. You can you can just write it here. That way you don't have to call for self every time. I don't know, but let's be fast, so we can just access it via the self. I mean, you know what the self does. I don't want to waste time explaining it, right? Yeah, yeah. But what we're also saying could have also worked if we wanted to implement it that way. I mean, with programming, everything is just your own way, and then it works fine. So this is what we want to do. So see, when we create the user, we save it in a file. When we create a user, we save it in a file. When we create a user, we save it in a file. Now see the modularity here. I mean, the modularity is not complete, but it works in such a way that, okay, tomorrow when you are dealing with another database, that is not what that is not JSON file, right? We have to come and write a different method and then use call for it in what, in our program. That is actually a long way. There is a simpler way. We'll talk about that. You just have to just change and call for it. You create a class somewhere called storage class. You call for it here. As simple as that. But now this is how we are going to what, we are going to work with it. Okay. So now let's run our program and then let's see if it actually dumps the data in what, in our file. Did it even create the file in the first place? Okay, because you have not called for the method, it's not going to what, create any file. So see, let's see how this one works. Let's create one to be John, right? And let's create two. Did Mark join today's meeting? Mark, today we gave you two, right? And then let's create um um yes, a moment. Yes, it is. And then you figure it out, okay? Okay. Then I will figure it out, okay? All right. So when we read, I mean, that is one thing I've learned in programming. Okay, you may not always have the answer. You don't need to know it. You just have to be able to figure it out, and then you are good to go. And we are very good at that. If you've not realized that as a programmer yet, we are very good at that. We always figure things out. We are problem solvers. So let's see if this works. Oh, I need to do something here. I'll do that later. Let's go to our data, and then as you can see, it has stored what? Yes, it has stored John, Mark, and then Mary, all in what? All in one dictionary, as our friend was saying, and then that is what we wanted because we use what? A dictionary. You want it to be stored in what? In the form of what? A dictionary. Key value pair, right? So when we format it, now we can see that what? Our program is what? It's working as it is saving data. Now let's write our program again and let's try and test what Dana was saying. Let's see if it does that. Now let's create another user, right? Let's say user 4 and let's call him Kobe. I mean, I can't see the screen to be giving you to be using your names. Sorry, so I'm just using any random names. And as you can see, our JSON file has been what? It has been updated, right? So it is not creating, it is not how do I say? It is not appending or it's not updating it. It is just kind of what replacing it because we are using the right. It's just kind of replacing it. That wouldn't be a biggie. We'll figure it out, don't worry. And then when we create a user here and we call that Diana, it's just kind of replace it, right? As it just kind of, I don't know, it has replaced the old one and then the new one is being created. And then we create 6 and then we create something like Kofi. Kofi is a Ghanaian name, people born on Friday. It just kind of stores our data. That is not what we want, right? So we will be doing some things now to change a lot of things here. See, we have what? We have done this, right? We have done this, and then that is why even data and using a database is even more efficient because you don't have to worry about all of these things, right? You just create a table, rows and columns, just be replacing them inside, right? So see, one thing we can also do is we are writing a code to what? To kind of save to what? To the file, right? Now, let's say we want to work with the data now. Let's say we want to be able to work with it. We want to load it. We want to work with it. Let's see. I want us to use a method to load it. That will solve. We have 5 minutes before it's 6. I have a lot of classes. I have a class for today, right? So I will be very fast about my code, and then I may not explain some things along the way. See, we are writing a method. Okay, we want to write another method. Let's say we want to work with our file, the data in our file, right? Let's say after we are saving it, we want to load. We can write a method called loading. That way we can load the data that was stored in what? In the previous section. I don't know if it's making sense. So we can use that one to also achieve that. See, we can create a method called what? Load, right? Or load from, right? And then, unlucky me, I'm very slow with Python too. I'm not able to code very fast with Python, right? And then what we are going to do is we are going to use this to what? To load the what? The either data, datum or data, or I don't know. The English students here. So load the user what? Data, right? From the JSON file. All right, great. And now this is how what we are going to implement it. See, I want us to do something. When or let me just go on and write the code, okay? Let me just go on and write the code. I will do something very soon, okay? So let's see. Wait, right? With open, what's the name of our file? User data dot JSON, right? We open this our file and then we open it in what? In read mode. As what? As JSON file. If I make a mistake, guys, kindly draw my attention. So I'm trying to be very fast. And then when we open that file, we want to load the data we have into our dictionary. Now, see, the first thing we do is let's load our data. That way, you don't get what? You don't get confused. So let's use JSON load to what? To load our data. Okay. And then where are we loading the data from? From our JSON file. Have you opened the file? Yes, you have opened it. From our JSON file. And then when we load it, okay, we want to load it into what? Our dictionary. How do we access our dictionary? self users, right? Great. As simple as that. Okay. So that is we are doing. Okay, we are loading the data into what? From from um from the JSON file to what? To our dictionary, right? And then that is it. So let's call for the what? Let's call for the load at places that's what we can call for it, right? There are a lot of things I want us to be able to implement here, but I'm thinking about it. Whenever I'm coding, then I'm thinking of how I'm going to what, um achieve the data, achieve achieve the how to implement it, right? So we can load it. There are a lot of ways we can load our data. Right. Guys, see, we can make use of what? Of our code line here. Do you guys understand what our brother explained, how he explained this to us? Okay. I want to add something. When you're writing C program, you do something called what? Int main. And then the int main is where what? The program starts what? Compiling from. It is the entry point of what? Of the code. We can treat this one as similar what? Incidents or as a similar analogy, right? See, when we do something here, right? When we print hello world here, okay? When we print hello world here, and then we run the program, I want you to notice something. It prints what? Hello world on top of what? Before even the program starts, right? So this is where line 65 is the starting point of what? The program, right? Let's know it to be what? An entry point, something like that. Keep it at the back of your head. So in order for us to what? In order for us to, whenever we open the program, we want what? We want the load method to call itself, right? So we can just say that what? We can just access the load here. We can use how am I even saying it? We can call for the load method here, right? So that whenever the program is about to start, then we'll have already loaded our data and we can read from it directly. And if anyone is confused, you can just let me understand and then I explain it to you. Are you confused with what I'm trying to say? Is anyone confused? Dan, are you confused? All right, see. Forget about this. Of course, definitely. Wow. 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 Okay. But before that, see, um, what our brother said is perfect, right? Exactly. He said everything. But the problem is my screen recorder does not does not yesterday's section. It did not capture the participant's voice. So it will make it difficult for those who are watching the recorded section to even understand what is going on. I don't know if you get me. And then I was trying to find a solution to that. I did not come up with a solution. So I don't know how they are going to understand, but they can just search it up. Right. So then I ask your question. So I will find a solution to that before maybe tomorrow. Then ask your question. Yes. Perfect. So see, all right. So see, you see that if we don't have it there, if you've not called for this load from method, right? Let's do this. We've not called for the load from method. Let's run our program. Let's create. Let's read, right? You see that the list of users is still what, zero. But we remember that what we wanted to make sure that what we created some users in what in our file. So why are they not showing here? Right? That is why we wrote a method that what is going to check that fast. That way that whenever you run the program, remember what we are supposed to ensure what persistency in what in our web application. That means if the user wants to retrieve their data, it should be possible. Something like that, right? That is why we are writing a method that will take care of that. And then, as our brother explained, we want to load the data even before the program runs. See, we could have, I mean, there is another way we could have done that, but I wanted to use it to explain something to you. When before the program, and this is like saying that okay, line 65, okay, if there is the main program, before it runs, you just what load the data for us so that we can have access to it in our program. So when I did a print hello world, right? It printed the hello world even before it ran the rest of the program. It ignored everything and printed the hello world first, right? Even before what it ran the program. So every code you place here is what is basically you trying to say that what that should be done even before what the program what runs or executes, or it should done before the other rest of the code what goes on, right? That is what I want us to do. So I want us to call for this method here from what from our user management, right? And then I don't know, guys, if I make a mistake, I mean, better you can bring my attention to it. I'm trying to access what? I'm trying to access this load here, load from. All right, method here. Great. Now let's see. So right. So this is when this is put in place. When we now run our program, okay, and then we do read, we are supposed to what get our users from what from our data JSON file, something like that. And now we have a problem with that. It is not working as it's supposed to. Let me see, guys, why isn't it working as it's supposed to? Why isn't it loading our JSON file? Okay, so please let's work on that one too. Let's debug it together. Now, let me see. So it means my my method didn't work. Yeah, yeah, that it was going to give us the dictionary representation. We can also print the contents of the file. What do you think? What do you think about that? Yes. So let's see. Let's print how did we store the data? We did not even save any data. We dump it. Now we open it in read mode. Now, how will we read? Yes, yes. Okay, see, this is what we are going to do, okay? I want us to try something else too. Okay. Yes. 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 So should I open it? I mean, it's already open, but so we can read it. We can read the contents of the file. How do we read the contents of the file? Right? Read. Yes. As yes. Okay. Okay. So we can print. What we can do is um we can print the name and see if we get at least even one name, or we can print a digit from the self.users. Yes. So how am I going to do that? Um let's say this is user, and then I should use the F, something like that, and I get the digits here, right? This is user self. Wait, I can't access digits from. I can't access digits from here in the key. So then with the key, um, name. Think I'm getting something right. I can't. Okay, let me just go and copy the one we used to print it here, the serialization, and then we will make the changes to what to that. Don't know if I can use the F the F string to get it. Then let me just use this and let me see. I don't know if it makes sense. Or is it with indentation? Okay, right. So let me do this. I think that one also give us an issue, the indentation, right? Right, let's do this. And then we use self.users here. Oh, okay. All right, I get what you're saying, but I want us to, right after we load it, I want us to get the contents. Yes, yes, it's true, it's true, it's true. Yes, you're right. You're right. Thank you very much. Wow. So let's do this. Oh, name. Don't we have, oh yes, we don't have a name. We have, let's say one, right? Let's see our JSON file. One, we don't have one, so we have four. Let's use four there. Let's see. Okay, so we have we have it printing what? Copy. So it means that, as you can bear witness, let's confirm that four is what? Four is copy. So it means our method is working fine. So why is it that when we read, guys, but are you following? Are you following? Come again. Oh, the person's voice is very far. Oh, right. I read. Hey, okay, right. Yes, we have a read here. Right, right, right. Whenever we do the read, we want to initiate what? We should call for our method, right? Is that what you are trying to say? Come again. Oh, the person's voice is very. Yes. Yes. Come again. The read method. Oh, we read the copy here is from the the print we used here to signify that the method is working as it's supposed to. Yes, it's supposed to call the method do read. Yes. Yes. All right. So guys, we should call for the method here, right? I'm not really getting you guys. See, do you know something? Let's try this. I'm trying to get you guys, but let's try this. Let's call for the let's call for the um oh, what's the name? The load from, right? Let's try and call the load from and let's see. So that whenever the user presses what? Presses read or enters read, it kind of calls for this method. And then the method what does its work. Something like, I don't know. But we are even supposed to even call for it. Does the load from display it? No, right? It does not display it. So let's get it, let's call for it somewhere here. Guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying something and see. Yes. So let's try it and see. Let's comment this out, right? And now let's end this program and let's call for read. Okay. Wow. So I think so what is so when the user enters read, we just call for this method and then we print it. So but I want to understand something. Guys, let me do this. Let me get that means we don't even need this, right? If that is the case, we don't need this. Is that what it means? Let me see. Well, I'm just we are I mean we're all learning, right? Yes, that means we don't need this. That means this method mechanism I used here was a flaw. But but I mean we could have let me see. This one will obviously give us an error. I mean, or we could have just printed all the users here. We could have just printed. Well, as long as it works, don't touch it, right? Guys, are we okay with what I did? Are you okay with what? Oh, I loaded I'm loading it with the method here, right? But I'm calling for the method when the read command is triggered on line 27 before printing it. What do you think? I think that is a good idea, right? Well, as long as it works, right? So what we've done here is okay. We have tried to let's create another. Now the problem arises when we try to create another user, right? When we create maybe user 7 with name, I don't know, maybe Chris, right? It's kind of overrides it, and that is the problem what we are having now. And then that was because we are using when we use so let's use the method that did not work for us, but we can try it here. I don't know. It did not work for us, but we can try. I'll find solution to it, guys. Don't worry. I'll find solution to it. Ex- yes, exactly. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Right. So we have not gotten that very properly because it wow, you see, it gives us a lot of errors because after that we are having what? It's having just appending because I did what? I did appending, which is not ideal, right? We need to find or let's say when the user we instead of we can just append it to the how do I say we can append it to the dictionary before even saving it. Yes. Wow. Yes. Oh, then that is very but time because of time. That would have been very simple, but because of time, we cannot see what we are thinking is right. Right. We can actually update the dictionary, the JSON string when we load it. You cannot update the dictionary here before dumping it. So you append the new item into what? Into the dictionary we already have before what we dump it. So when we load it, even if it's what 1,000 names, we just append, we dump it, we append, we dump it. That would be a very good flow. Though it's not the best, it's very optimized and clean. That one would work fine. And I think that is it. Let's see if we have when we read, obviously when we read, we'll get problems here because of our appending here when we read. See, it actually appends the list. It actually appends it, but it creates a new, how do I say? It creates something new, right? Yeah, 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 but that's not what we want, right? So we need to find out a way. But hopefully tomorrow, before we how I did mine in the Airbnb console was because we're dealing with classes. It made it easy. Whenever you just want to save, you just go and call for the. I mean, you import the class and then you call for the method you want to use, which made it very easy. That is the instructions ALS used to make it easy. But trying to build it without following their own and then doing your own thing, you have a lot of problems to do it, right? So guys, don't forget to actually update your console. So this works fine. This works fine. Tomorrow we will implement this our console. Where is our console? We implement our console in what? In using a base model instead of using the console for everything. We'll use a base model for our methods and we just call for it in the console whenever we are supposed to or whenever it's necessary. So so this save to file, this load from, we will implement all that in what in a base model. Then we just come and import it here. I don't know if that makes sense. So that brings us to the end of what of today's section.